Okay, here we go. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon for this session. Just before we get started, a massive thank you to Event Tech Live sponsors Choose to Rent for sponsoring the show this week, and to Kaltura sponsors over here at the Kaltura Theatre. If you haven't been in any sessions yet today, where have you been? But you probably know by now, but you can follow closed captions with Interpretify on the screen over there. If you would like to ask any questions, do scan the QR code. You can access the Pigeonhole app or go to pigeonhole.at. You can upvote your favourite question and we'll get to those a bit later in the session. So we're going to talk all things gamification now. So I'm going to hand over to Lionel Scurville, who is Director of Sales for IMEA for Captello. And he's going to give us some hints and tips on how we can make events sizzle with digital gamification.
Thank you. So, hey, Wembley, crowd go wild. Yeah, sorry, wrong gig, yeah. All right. So I'm Lionel. I'm Sales Director for Captello. So Captello, we're a gamification, lead capture and event management solution provider. So what we're going to talk about today, or I'm hopefully going to give you some more insight into, is gamification and how to enliven and make your event sizzle with some more gamification. So let's start off with the most obvious question, which is, what is event gamification? So event gamification is a broad term that refers to incorporating game-like processes and elements into your event to make it more engaging and to motivate attendees to keep interacting. Now that's quite a mouthful, but in essence what that means is, and we probably, most people in this audience probably understand that there's a neurotransmitter in our brain that will release a dopamine hit, basically. So anytime you're completing a task, you're taking some fun, some enjoyment out of it, you're going to get a hit from this particular neurotransmitter. Okay, so what we're doing, we're trying to exploit that. It sounds really bad, right? But in many respects, what we're trying to do is make sure these guys feel that they're actually having some fun through these interactions, okay? So a game-like design helps make content products more entertaining and engaging for attendees. And this is the most important thing, will produce positive behavioral outcomes from these interactions. Again, going back to that, slight dopamine hit, but more importantly, it's going to allow them to, feel that they're now part of this event in a much more proactive way, right? Rather than being forced to do things, being told to where to go, they're now taking part in a much more proactive way, which is probably the biggest thing for gamification and the way you will deploy it in your event. So of course, with the newest event technology, gamification becomes a much more powerful tool now for event planners. Okay. So benefits of gamification for event engagement. Okay, so the most obvious one is, of course, increase attendee participation. Okay. Secondly, you want to enhance those networking opportunities. Now, this is probably a perennial challenge for most event organizers, event planners, is how do you get your attendees to interact with each other, let alone with sponsors and content, okay? So what you do, you will deploy technology that will allow them to be proactive in that, okay? And I'll show you some examples of that later on. Okay, and another thing, of course, is improved engagement with content. And this is probably most for, especially for event organizers, you want to increase that brand recognition, right, and that brand loyalty, okay? And probably the most important thing of all of this is improving your audience insight data, okay? Right, so key elements of successful event gamification, right? Now, as an event planner, you should have, and you should maintain this, is clear objectives and goals for your events, okay? A lot of the times people come to it and they say, oh, we need some way to engage our audience. We need them to, have a bit of fun. They always do this at the end, okay? So anything that you tag on to your events, and if you have no purpose to it, if there's no clear thinking of this, it's going to end up just being, in essence, deployment of tech for no reason at all, okay? So fuzzy thinking will beget fuzzy outcomes, okay? Make sure it's relevant and proportional as well, okay? So relevant. What do I mean by that? Make sure it aligns with your event themes, okay? Make sure it's relevant to your objectives, right? And proportional. So what you don't want to do is turn your event into some sort of funfair arcade, yeah? Where there's loads of things to do, it becomes style over substance. Another thing also, and this is probably something that is going to become more of a challenge for event planners now, is how do you make all your event technology work together, okay? So remember, there's we're in a hall full of these vendors and suppliers of technology. Trouble is, everyone will do certain aspects really well, something really well, okay? But you as an event planner, you want to take best of breed, you want to tie it all together. So make sure all your technology works, okay? And make sure it integrates and becomes a seamless experience for your attendee. And of course, and I think this is probably the most important thing around gamification, is, that old saying, you can take a horse to water, blah, blah, blah. How do you make sure attendees will take part, will participate, will engage with content, with sponsors, areas of interest? Incentivize travel, incentivize that participation, okay? Make sure it's effective, right? And make sure those rewards are real, okay? Right. There we go. So, I'm going to try and give you some ideas for top ideas and strategies and how to gamify your event. Okay. The best way to do any kind of maybe some sort of challenge or some sort of game is make sure that it reflects your attendees' demographics. Okay. So I've been to events and I've seen people put in like Space Invaders and some sort of action type game, and the majority of the audience were CEOs, CMOs, CFOs, in the financial sector. Didn't get much participation, okay, because it didn't really match the demographic. Put into, if you understand your audience a lot better, and then you'll be able to deploy games and interactive challenges that will really match their skill set, okay? Make sure it aligns with event themes, okay? So if you're doing something around, I don't know, a medical conference, yeah, make sure those games, those interactive challenges, whatever it is, puzzles, whatever, have some sort of medical kind of thing to it, or, there's a challenge around that particular sector, okay? So, surveys and gamified polling during presentations. Now look, this presentation is probably as boring as hell, right? I should throw in a couple of sort of like gamified polling in here, and get you guys enlivened, But it's a good way to stop that boredom, and that's probably key, and it sort of feeds into like virtual and hybrid events as well. Team-based challenges, scavenger hunts, group tasks, okay? This is a good way to get your audience to interact with each other, again, in a proactive manner, but also allow them to start building connective tissue with each other. Again, proactive attendee networking, okay? And also, it will help you control and direct attendee footfall, okay? The perennial challenge for any event is, how do I make sure my sponsors get to meet as many as attendees as possible, when they're next to the toilet and they're seeing one man and their dog come past, Put in a scavenger hunt, put in some form of incentivized travel to that point in your event, okay? Right, so just some ideas, right? Just to give you a few ideas, okay? Stick in some interactive challenges, puzzles, trivia, quizzes, okay? Whack-a-mole, some sort of like, some sort of game of chance. Again, what you're doing, you're making this not only fun, but you're also providing some sort of incentive to do this, okay? Right, a great tool to use is some sort of photo booth, okay? There's a lot of technology out there now that will allow you to elevate now just purely from taking a photograph to now being part of a mosaic, to putting pledges up. So if you see the bottom left one was a client of ours where they were doing a sustainability theme, right? And they wanted to get a pledge from everyone in there. They took a photo, put them on the mosaic, and they had a pledge, which then they followed up 6 months later and said, look, Jane, you took this pledge, to improve, how you recycle. How did you keep to that pledge? right? It's going to open up more doors now for more conversations with your attendees. And also it will build some really good brand loyalty for that event as well. All right, let's go through. Next one. Scavenger hunts. This is a great way to drive traffic around your events. As you can see, excuse the design skills, yeah? I'll have to take some lessons in presentation design, but this is a good way to really break up your event into, you know, a series of areas of challenges for your attendees, okay? And also, you can use it in various ways. You can use it, like I said, to drive traffic around there, but you can also offer sponsors, you know, or this could be a great sponsor opportunity for you, another revenue stream for you guys, okay? Have a load of brandable QR codes around, even break it up into small little treasure hunts, okay? And the way some of the technology, and especially our technology as well, we allow for, you know, separate leaderboards for separate scavenger hunts, feeding into a global leaderboards, you know, so we've done events where people have offered, you know, decent prizes like, you know, iPads, but the main prize was like a 25 grand holiday, okay? And there was around, I think, around 37,000 people took part in that, okay? Great way to build interaction with content, because you can front end these QR codes with some sort of consumption of content or leaving details or whatever it is, okay? Some sort of digital footprint these guys are leaving with you. And because you're tying it up with your event tech, your mobile attendee app, everything's in one place. Everything's seamless for these guys, okay? Okay, so, you know, proactive networking. So we offer something. I'm not going to turn this into an info ad for us, but we have, and there's some technology out there as well who do similar things where you can have proactive networking, okay? How many times on event management platforms you've been aligned with someone because you share a same, you know, interest in pink unicorns, okay, based on your registration details. You know, someone reaches out to you and you say, yeah, you look like a serial killer, I'm not going to meet you up for a coffee, right? Now, if you bump into someone, you both have a QR code in your badge, as a bit of fun, you know, you recognize that person from a company, they might even be a prospect of yours. You scan that, opens up a game, 2 truths, 1 lie, or 1 lie, 2 truths. I can't remember what it's called, the same game. So, you know, and this is a good icebreaker, but it allows these guys proactively to build up connective tissue, right? Move through this. Now we get into the virtual and hybrid event gamification, okay? So the key with this is, you know, we all experiment with virtual, you know, the event management platforms, they were great, you know, it was what we needed at the time. But you're building up that virtual audience, right? And it seems that a lot of people just, seems to have forgotten about these guys, you know? There's probably there's probably about 10 to 20, even probably 20% of your audience of your event will make up virtual, be a virtual audience, okay? So make this inclusive. Get these guys involved. You know, you can get them still involved in, you know, scavenger hunts. They could be part of teams. You know, they can take part in their own challenges. You can even create a separate experience for the virtual audience, just to give them a little bit more, you know, something to basically to do. You know. Let's move this through. Now, of course, what we're trying to do with most gamification is not only to make it more engaging and much more unique experience for attendees, but for ourselves, we're trying to get better audience insight. You know, we're always trying to improve what we do, you know, how the events look, how the events feel for our attendees. You don't really know that until you get that data insight, okay? So use this as an opportunity to get that insight, you know. Use this again as sponsor opportunities, as exhibitor opportunities, where you're selling in gamification to your sponsor base, your exhibitor base, and saying, look, we're going to provide you now with the tools to get much more better insight. Get these guys to re-sign with you later on because they've got all that valuable actionable data now from using gamification. So you can use it as kiosks where people are taking part as static points. Your staff might carry it around on their mobile device, engage these guys via a game, use branded QR codes, yeah? It's easy. It's just a really good way for attendees now to have that seamless experience. Okay, so overcoming event gamification challenges. The main thing is making sure this is accessible and has inclusivity built into it. Okay, I'm not going to say it's pointless, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you're deploying gamification where there is some barrier to entrance for your audience. Okay, all right. What it's going to do, it's going to leave some of your attendees out in the cold a little bit. Okay, they will relate that to other people. You're going to cause yourself more issues than you are going to get any positive outcomes from this. So make sure it's accessible, make sure it's inclusive. Okay, and also balance competition and collaboration. All right, make sure it's not just a mad competitive environment where people are rushing around trying to do make sure it's fun, right? Make sure there's enough people that take part, they want to work together as well, okay? And make sure, you align your gamification with your event themes and goals, okay? Really important, make sure it's appropriate, make sure it's proportional, okay? Key things. Right, so general tips for implementing gamification at your events, right? Plan early, right? Seriously, plan early. Don't leave it to the last minute, right? And, I think, it would be a nice thing to have, right? Change your paradigm, okay? It's not nice to have, it's essential to deploy, okay? That's the key thing, right? This is going to help you, and this will open up your event to so many more people, right? This will open up, this will negate any of those issues. How many times you've gone around to your sponsors and said, you ready to re-sign? It's like, not really, right? We want to see ROI, we want to see. If you're deploying good gamification, they're driving, you're controlling traffic to them, right? These guys go, I've never been at an event like this. I've had 5x the amount of people that have come to my stand previously, okay? You will get these guys to re-sign, okay? But more importantly, you're going to make this a much better environment for your attendee, okay? Understand your audience. Going back to, making sure you understand your demographics, right? You're going to make sure that you deploy games and gamification that's going to work for those demographics, right? Maintain focus on objectives, okay? Don't just put things in there superfluously, right? Make sure there's a purpose to it. Make sure there's a reason why you've got a QR code at a point of interest or in a walkway, or you've given it, to a certain sponsor. Make sure you're maintaining a focus on objectives. Now, this is really important. Test it. This really comes in with plan early as well. Okay, test, right? You're going to find that you're going to have to adapt your gamification, your gamified environment, okay? But make sure you test before you launch, all right? Because if you launch and then you have to make any changes, yeah, you could do, but if you need to make overall changes, wholesale changes, it's going to be a failure. Okay, so test. Monitor and adapt, okay? So when it does go live, again, you're going to have that 99%, yeah, it's going to work. There's always that 1%. So monitor, adapt. And this is really important. Now, the last two, I think, are really important. Communicate with your audience and sponsors early as well, okay? All right? How many times have you gone to an event, you've seen like, there's games or there's a QR code to scan, and you've gone and you thought, why? What? You have no idea why it's there. You have no idea what is the purpose, okay? Communicate early. And this kind of ties up with tying up with your event tech, yeah? You can communicate via a mobile attendee app, yeah? Make sure you do all that, okay? And the seventh one really is reflect and learn, okay? So use all this data insight that you're gathering to then say, right, did it work? Did our scavenger hunt over here work? Did this, Wheel of Fortune over here work? Whatever it was, right? Use the data, let the data drive you on this, but reflect, and if you need to learn, if you need to adapt, do so, okay? Right, so the future of event gamification and engagement will be to increase attendee data acquisition, increase your knowledge retention with content and sponsors as well, build and increase event brand loyalty, and it will support AI-based event design. So probably, there's probably more ideas you could probably apply to that. But I think those four, at the moment, is the main reasons you would deploy gamification on that, okay? So that's it, yeah. So in fact, actually, no, got one more slide. Everyone take out your phone, right? have a chance to win £100 now, right? It's over that. I'm just grabbing your data, yeah, and I'm going to make more than 100 quid out for it. Should I have done this at the beginning or at the end? See, reflect and learn. Yeah. Right, so I hope that was informative. I know I rushed through it a little bit, but I hope it was.
No, really good. Thank you, Lionel. Lots of hints and tips there if you're thinking about using gamification or maybe refining what you're already doing. Any other questions for Lionel? Okay, I'll ask you a couple of questions. We've got 10 minutes. I'm actually doing quite a bit of work around gamification and scavenger hunts and things at the moment. So you talked a bit there about planning early and communicating. And with all of these things, there's lots of apps, there's lots of gamification tools, and lots of tech here. The main thing, or the main question I get a lot is about how can you drive that adoption. So I guess first part of the question, any other tips to ensure that people actually do find the game and go into it to play it? And is there any kind of like benchmark that you think would be like a successful adoption? Maybe it's not realistic to expect everyone to play the game, but is there a good benchmark that people should be aiming for to sort of demonstrate success?
Yeah, I would say roughly, you're talking about probably about 40% upwards. Adoption of that would be a good outcome from gamification. In regards to, so your question was around your first part?
Around driving that adoption, really. Any other hints or tips that you see your clients doing?
Well, me personally, I think that I've been at one event where this was quite a unique experience, and they had team members from the event organizer who were actually at points of interest where they had QR codes, where they had the games, and they were driving people towards it, telling them exactly what they could win or what the point was, the objective of this game was. They were taking groups of people around to, start them on a scavenger hunt. They were actually hand-holding a lot of people and moving. That's a good way to do it. If you haven't got that sort of personnel to do it, make sure you're consistently and continually, pushing this. Make sure people understand that there are these elements in your event. Okay, you've got to promote it. If you don't, no one's going to know. The worst thing to do is people just go, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, for sure. So make it part of your event marketing strategy and plan early. Yeah. I'm certainly going to scan the QR code to see if I can win the £100. I'd certainly play if I could win the £25,000 holiday. If there's guys here that are maybe from the pharma sector or maybe corporations where they're not allowed to give away monetary or physical prizes, any other ideas on incentives or rewards?
Yeah, you could do things like, I don't know if this will fall under that particular category, but you might be able to give these guys, tickets for the next event you're doing, or we had a client who was doing something around sustainability, but I had a juice bar. They had juice bars all around, so you could win different coupons to different juice bars with different concoctions, things like that. There's various ways of doing it. Your hands are going to be tied in regards to not offering monetary kind of incentives, but there are ways of that.
Yeah, be creative though to make some kind of incentive in there. Yeah. Cool, great, thank you. Any other questions before we finish up? All right, thanks a lot, Lionel.
No worries, thank you. Thank you.